There was a story that came out just a few days ago about a metalcore band. I guess, are you guys a Christian band, Shannon, or you just call yourselves musicians that occasionally addressed Christian themes?
No, we claimed as a Christian band.
Christian band. On Luxor Records, 3 albums to their credit. All of a sudden, the lead singer comes out, Shannon Low, and he tells his audience via social media, "Hey guys, I no longer believe in God." This is kind of a big bomb to drop on everybody. So I had the opportunity to have a conversation with the lead vocalist of the Order of Elijah, Shannon Low, and talk about this very thing. So Shannon joins me here. It's great to have you, man. How's it going?
Hey, Seth, how's it going?
Look, I'll be honest. I had to look up what metalcore is. I have no idea. Metalcore is a broad fusion genre of extreme metal and hardcore punk. The word is a blend of the names of the 2 genres. Metalcore, noted for its use of breakdowns, which are slow, intense passages, conducive to moshing. I'll just start with a question from one of our listeners who said this: isn't the whole demonic growling part of metalcore a bit off for Christian music?
Yeah, I think that it's kind of an underground genre. There's a lot of successful bands that are Christian, metal that are way bigger than us, done very well for themselves, and it's pretty much a style of ministry that has been what I've seen focused towards the youth. Usually, our style of music appeals towards 15 to 25-year-olds, and it's usually used as a tool to be able to express their ministry. They usually use certain undertones of different types of aggressive lyrical patterns and stuff. So I think that it's kind of an appeal to those people, and it's really picked up in this genre as much as you wouldn't think. There's more and more bands coming out as Christian. We were on a label that was Christian at first, and then we went to Luxor, which is a secular label, and that the label we were on, they had a bunch of Christian metal bands as well.
What did Luxor have to say about your big announcement? Any protest? Any eyebrows raised in concern?
No. Nick, the president of Luxor Records, is a great guy. He's given us a lot of free roam on our creativity and just letting us be ourselves. I expressed to him that that I wanted to step away from the Christian genre at first. I didn't want that title. And this is right whenever I think the transition was going in, and so he was chill with that, and I did that, and it seemed to almost cause us more problems than I expected it to solve. And so I mean, I've had Nick's support. Nick is a really cool guy, and he's really excited for our new album too. We hit top 10s on iTunes metal charts in January, and he's bringing us back up there in Michigan to talk to him. We're going to talk to about another album we're going to be recording. So we're really excited to be with Luxor.
The beauty of music is it's a preference, right? It's all subjective. What speaks to you may not speak to me. I'll admit, Shannon, I mean, I pulled up your stuff, and the only way I could approximate it is to dip your head in gasoline and ignite your face. My first thought is, does it just shred your throat?
It takes practice. There is techniques I had to learn, especially whenever we started touring, to be able to preserve your voice. I get asked often about that, especially from newer vocalists and stuff. And, kids that are starting to do that same thing, they'll hit me up. They'll be like, I've been doing vocals. How do you maintain keeping your vocal cords? And there's a lady I learned from, named Melissa Cross. She has a bunch of YouTube videos, and I usually suggest they go check that out. She helps you learn how to form your own scream through your own voice without ripping your vocal cords apart.
How to form your own scream for your own voice without ripping out your vocal cords. I mean, it should be in any music instruction manual, I think. It's helpful stuff. When you recorded and released your first album, did you consider yourself a minister?
In a way, yes. Yeah. I felt I was called to be a pastor shortly after I was baptized, and I I went through many motions through the church. I didn't find a church for a long time. When I got involved in one, I ended up on the worship team of the church playing guitar there. I ended up as a leader for the youth group. I was super passionate about it. So yeah, I saw the Order of Elijah as a ministry. Now, we did take a, kind of a side turn on most of if you were listening to our lyrics in a lot of our older songs, you wouldn't even be able to tell we were a Christian band unless you were told. Try to, keep it poetic. And I often discuss like corruptions that were in churches. I think that was one of the topics that was often brought up in the church that I went to. I think that's a pretty strong marketing tactic I'm seeing in a lot of like the non-denominational churches. They'll condemn the hell out of, more charismatic type churches and make them look insane. And that catches on people like that, especially if you've been turned away from church like that. You go to a church, it's kind of talking shit on something like that, you're more appealed that you're like, oh, well, they're sane. And so I kind of incorporated that into some of my older tunes. We've always kind of been the bad boys of the Christian genres,
I had a guy send me a message and said he used to work for various record labels. What was your experience with Christian, quote unquote, Christian record labels, or at least the one that you previously had? How much of this is a business, Shannon?
I think it's all about the business. I think that the music industry, it goes without saying it's a very corrupt industry. It's hard for anybody to make money now. So the people that are making money, they're doing whatever they can to do so. I know that every single Christian band that's successful, they have marketing tactics. It goes right along with the way that Joel Osteen has a formula of how he says certain inspiring, pick you up quotes. A lot of them try to stay as, they try to keep it as neutral as they can so they can appeal to the secular crowd. I think that a lot of our music kind of did that. I didn't want to, talk about, sticking a steel boot up the devil's ass or anything like that. You try to keep it poetic, I suppose. But that there's some bands that are more upfront. I'll take the hero band of the whole metalcore scene for today. Bunch of great guys. We've played with them, they're very admired for the way they stand up for Christianity and the way that they do that. But as much as I love them and their music, I can't help but to see the major marketing ploy that goes on with them and every other Christian band on that label. And it's a money machine. It really is. And every single move they make is marketable. And it somehow is completely veiled over the eyes of that particular community that they are a victim of that market. And that was another one of the main reasons we wanted to step away. I was wanting to step away from the Christian genre title before I even released my faith completely. I think I was calling myself a deist at the time, and I was just like, I don't want to sell this anymore. I don't want to be a product of this market that is. But obviously today I pretty much see religion as a virus today. So, of course, I would probably have negative things to say, but I can say that there's some positive things I see in the Christian community as well, as far as the metalcore scene and stuff like that goes. There's been some churches that's had us in and, just been very hospitable and stuff.
I'm glad you make that distinction, because it's like when I was in Christian broadcasting, we did radio, and there were some people who were definitely business people. They were behind the scenes. You realize this is all bogus. But there were a lot of people who, they were true blue. They really believed. They wanted to go out and change the world, make a difference. They had good hearts. They were moral people. And those people do exist inside the Christian music business. That's an important distinction to make, right?
That is true. I think that there's good people in every single sense. Since I've been exposed to the community over the past year, there's some complete asshole atheists. There's some complete asshole Christians. And there's some really, really nice ones. I've had some Christians reach out to me since this has all happened. Well, I've had a lot, but I've had, I could probably count on one hand. There's just some really nice guys that have hit me up. They're not looking to, debate. They're not looking to challenge me or anything. They're like, hey, you know what? I've actually had those same thoughts. And I even had a pastor tell me that he's had the same thoughts, but, he was, congratulating on me for having the bravery of saying what I did. And I just, I sometimes I get wrapped up in the negativity of all of it, and it pisses me off sometimes. I do think that there is a fine line in between criticizing a person as a person and criticizing an idea or belief system, because if somebody was to say like all Christians are pieces of shit, that's not a true statement. That's not a fair statement. But if you say I believe that everything that they stand for could be delusional, that's a challenging statement as far as philosophy goes. So I think that the offense that's often taken by what we've done here lately is kind of dragged down a proportion.
There are no sacred ideas. I mean, that's an easy one, right? Christianity is built on a debunked book, on debunked ideas. And so we can really go after Christianity as a whole, realizing that many of the people who bought into it, like we did, may just be victims of bad ideas. You read The God Delusion. Was that really the tipping point for you? Was that the thing? It sounds kind of cliche, but there has to have been a lot more to the story. What happened?
Yeah, that Christian article that they put out, boy, they just credited Richard Dawkins for all of it, didn't they?
With this oversimplification, was it just the God Delusion? What happened to you, and what helped you make the turn?
Yeah, I tell everyone as they ask me what was the big turning point, what made you change your mind, and I believe that it's a series of steps. It's never just one thing that falls into play that makes you change your mind. And I think the same thing goes with a decision to follow a religion. That's what happened whenever I decided to follow a religion. It wasn't just one thing, but it was actually church. A lot of people credit my divorce too. They say, well, he went through a divorce, and I know that was a hard time, and that's what pushed him away. And that's completely wrong. The divorce actually made me want to get closer to God. And then whenever I started going to church, I just happened to stumble across a sermon that brought up some stories that I'd heard, but you just overlooked these things. And I went and looked up some more stuff, and it really made me quickly realize that the God of the Old Testament is not ethical at all. And I tried to distance myself from the Old Testament first, because I didn't want to let go of Jesus. So I stuck with Jesus, and I got bashed left and right from friends, and just people were like, well, you can't do that. You've got to understand that Jesus quotes Moses, Jesus does all this. And so I had to kind of go back into it, and I had to dive in. I think that by the time I hit the God Delusion, whenever I bought it, I told the lady that I was buying it from that I was agnostic at the time, which at that time I'd completely released my beliefs on religion. And she's seen that, and she's like, because I'd been actually watching debates for a while. That was one of the things that really made me start. I was like, you know what, I want to see intellectual people debate this. And I went and I watched debates before I ever read any books. And whenever I brought up The Magic of Reality, she was like, oh, have you read The God Delusion? We just got a copy in brand new. And she broke it out, and I said, sure, whatever. I've read many books. I've read like 3 Sam Harris books, Dan Dennett book. Richard Dawkins, I think it's a great book. And I actually learned more from that book about biology than I think I did a lot of other things.
It's one of the best worded challenges to mainstream religious faith, while also educating you about all the stuff they taught us wrong inside the faith. I mean, they taught us a caricature of evolution. when I was growing up in the faith, they didn't teach us evolution. It was like an epiphany when you read this stuff, right?
Right. Whenever I was younger, there was evolution wasn't taught at all in schools, and it was more or less considered like a joke, I think. And today, as it's picked up and it's become more acceptable, I guess, even in the Christian community to believe in evolution, there's still this misfire amongst them that they've got to fill in blanks with God, I suppose. Yeah, I think that book really just did a good job on helping me understand the nature of living things, because he just goes into so much about just how the world pretty much made us. And since then, I've taken a lot of classes in college. It really opened my mind even more on that. That was, I guess, probably one of the things that got me interested in science.
It's funny, I met Dawkins for the first time a few years back in D.C. at a convention. And I promised myself I was going to be cool, I mean, it's easy to get starstruck, you know how it is, right? But, the book was so huge for me that I'm like, I'm going to be cool, I'm going to be cool, I'm going to be cool. And then all of a sudden I get the chance to meet him. I know he's on the clock. I've only got about 12 seconds to say what I want to say. And I just turned into this blathering idiot. I love you. I love what you do. Your book changed my life. You're amazing. I love you. And so I just turned into this total fanboy, and he's looking at me like, okay, I'm sure it happens quite a bit. But, you save all this stuff up that you want to say until you meet him, and then you just explode. You think he has any idea? Is this on his radar that his book was part of your journey, or what?
I thought about it, and I almost tweeted to him the whole testimony I typed up. But I just figured, I was like, he's an older gentleman, and if he was to hear my my crazy ass screaming metal music, he would probably say, "What have I done?"
He'd probably get it. I'll tag him in this. I'll say, "Hey, check this out. You played a part in this guy's sort of, finding his own voice kind of thing." So you finally come to the point where you say the word atheist. How many people in your audience do you guesstimate are overtly religious? I mean, is it a big thing to come out like you did on social media out of the blue and just say, "By the way, folks, I no longer believe in God"? Is that a big deal?
Yeah, it was a bigger deal than I expected it to be. Whenever it happened, I'd been putting up some posts that were controversial.
Like what?
Oh, I put up some stuff supporting LGBT rights, and I don't know. I may have said something about vaccinations, just trivial things like that. And
vaccinations are controversial in the year 2016. It hurts the heart. Basic human rights are controversial in the year 2016. It does. It just hurts the heart. All right. So now they're starting to fire off the alarm a little bit. Hey, wait a minute. Shannon's posting some pretty progressive stuff. And then you come out and you just said, "I no longer believe in God." And how many of those people abandoned you is kind of my bigger question. Did they bolt for the door?
We've had hundreds, unlike the page, and it began before I made the post. Whenever I typed up the post, I was originally responding to one of those few people that I mentioned that were really cool Christians, and this dude hit me up and he was like, "Hey," he was just nice. He wrote some stuff up. He said, "Hey, what's going on, man? I don't care either way." So I started typing, and I was about halfway through. And I put it off for a few days. I told him, I was like, "Hey, I'm going to respond to you whenever I get time." And then it was a few days later, and I realized I hadn't responded. I didn't have nothing to do. So I sat here, and I typed it up about halfway through. I was like, "You know what? I'm just going to put this up so I can just get this out of the way and tell everyone so they know now." And I did. And at first, I started getting black and white responses. And there would be people that would get mad and leave, or or let us know that they've desecrated all of our material that they owned, or
What do you mean? They're throwing your stuff in the trash or setting it on fire? What are they doing?
I had somebody burn our CDs. I guess that the thought of burning CDs,
like, it doesn't have the romance of burning the album either.
I was like, wow. The only thing I could think of, I was like, this person thinks that there's demonic spirits that might come out of my CDs, or what's the ritual of burning them? But yeah, just a bunch of reports like that all the way, to like taking posters down to deleting off iTunes, stuff like that. Lots of we're just so disappointed in you. I can't believe you do this. There's been a couple hostile ones. But I tell you what, whenever Hemmett posted that article, I got an amazing positive response from the atheistic community. It was a breath of fresh air.
Many of them get it. They sort of walked the same path that you did, right? They were immersed, and then they had doubts, and then they started asking tough questions without take it on faith or just trust me for an answer, and decided to go deeper, and they ended up an atheist. It's not like you choose this, right, Shannon? You didn't wake up and say, today I think I'll reject everything I once held dear. You don't do that.
No, and a lot of people have told me, they're like, why don't you believe just in case? And I was like, if I say I believe, that I'm lying. And they kind of have this like the cure-all method for your doubts is fake it till you make it, kind of, just stick with it, and if you're not feeling God, then, just don't give up on him, because he hasn't given up on you. And eventually you just come to a point where, you just can't buy it anymore. And I've told a few people, like, that going back to the God delusion, and I think I talked to someone else about Sam Harris's A Letter to a Christian Nation, which is really great. It's really short. And I'm like, look, like, whenever you go into a book like this, you need to be ready to either take the blue pill or the red pill, because there isn't much going back. I mean, I don't know. I kind of think of myself as a humanist now, and the justifications for the things that happen in the Old Testament just isn't in my heart. It really isn't there. I don't want to justify it, and because I know it's wrong. I don't need a rocket scientist to come show me, some novel of a paragraph, probably on the comment of a thread, explaining to me why one or two sentences out of this book, which it was, these two sentences are completely horrible, how it's totally justified, why it's okay to beat infant babies against the ground while holding them from their umbilical cord, why it's important that we had guidelines on how to beat our slaves. I don't buy it. I can't just pretend,
You'd mentioned your divorce. I don't want you to delve into too personal a territory if you don't want to, but Mark Woods had written this article for Christian Today, essentially talking about how, he was going through a valley in his life. He's going through all this stuff. You'd mentioned that many people thought the divorce drove you away from God. Woods sort of took the he did it wrong angle to your faith. Oh, if only he'd done Christianity right. If only he'd been introduced truly to the love of Jesus, he would have never walked away. Do you have a response to that?
Yeah. What upset me the most about that article was the blatant attack on the Christians that was in my life before. Like, they didn't do a good job. And
I think his angle was, we as a Christian culture didn't do a good enough job of showing the love of Jesus to Shannon. And so part of his atheism is our fault as the church.
I don't credit them with that. I credit the Bible, and it's right there in the words. You don't need anybody. You don't need bad false prophets to show you that the Bible is full of immoral, bad things. It doesn't take an expert on ethics to be able to realize that Jephthah murdering his virgin daughter in exchange for victory in war, that you don't need, a counselor to let you know that that isn't moral. And they spend more time justifying these types of things than they do just simply throwing their hands up and saying, you know what, that's wrong. It's even glorified in Hebrews 11:32, I think, and they glorified Jephthah and a few others, and say that that he received what God promised him. And
they're just circling the wagons, though, aren't they? I mean, you're doing it wrong is their way out of having to defend some really nasty stuff. Well, it's all up for interpretation. Some of it's parable, some of it's literal. Some of these are helpful stories. It was a different time, a different culture. God had to be harder on people than he is today. We hear all these sort of tap dances, but mostly it's just they're scrambling to try to defend the indefensible, and you've made some people uncomfortable. You've also inspired some people. Are you hearing from people who are saying, hey, dude, man, I was thinking a lot of this same stuff, and when you said this, I was reminded I wasn't alone. You catch any of that?
Yes, but especially since Hemet had the article. I have had literally hundreds of messages. I try to respond to them all, and if somebody's listening, I haven't responded to your message, I apologize. I will.
Well, just respond here. I mean, what would you say to somebody who felt like they'd been going down the same road? I mean, what would you say to them?
What I try to just let people know is I appreciate that them reaching out, and even if it was somebody that hasn't messaged me, it's if you have any questions or anything, I do encourage you to message me or someone else. You don't have to go to the biased side of the whole thing. Perhaps they may say that about me, but all I can do is give you my experience. I think that it's really awesome to not be alone in this struggle, because this is something that is force-fed almost every single one of us in this nation from the time we're born. And indoctrination begins with like happy stories like Noah and Jesus maybe feeding the hungry. And just totally looking past these horrible stories that only to be explained later in life after you've gathered your morals. And I think that if we could just figure out a way, I'm not going to indoctrinate my child, and whenever she gets older, she tells me she's a Christian, I'm sure that we'll have a long talk, but if that's her ultimate decision, I'm going to be cool with that. But I'm not going to try to let anybody else put any ideas in her head.
Shannon, what are the other band members saying? I mean, did they go through the journey with you? Were they already sort of skeptics? Do they care? This obviously impacts them. What's their take?
My band members are really supportive. I can't speak for all them. I know that none of them are extremely religious, and most of them are secular. But
when you come forward as an atheist so publicly, I mean, it could affect their professional futures, their personal futures. Was this an ambush for them? Did they see it coming? Did you sort of throw this out and say, man, I hope the guys are cool with this? What'd you do?
They've been with me on this entire journey from day one, and Brian's been right next to me the whole time. Brian was he was a theist whenever we first started, and now Brian will say he's not. And the other members were already all but I think one claim agnostic. And whenever I told them I wanted to step away from the Christian title, they were completely relieved.
So let's play devil's advocate. This here would be an interesting marketing move, would it not? Christian lead singer comes out as atheist, makes national headlines. Now people who had not heard of you before say, hey, who's the Order of Elijah? Who's Shannon Low? What's their music about? What's their website? I mean, the cynic might say that this is a marketing ploy of some kind. What would you say to that?
I have already heard that. a lot of people have even accused me for doing this solely for the purpose of marketing. That wasn't true. As I explained earlier, the post was genuine, and I didn't expect the positive reaction that we got. That was probably the most surprising part. I was kind of putting it out there, expecting much more of a negative lashback, and it kind of in hopes to clear out some of the negativity that was going on our page. I figured if I say this, it's going to get a bunch of people out. A lot of the people that are just here for the music and they just appreciate the band will stick around. But whenever that happened, we did receive a massive inflow of activity from the atheist community, and you know, I will go ahead and say I'm completely appreciative for that. But I'm, as an artist, you're excited to show your material to new people, and I think that the atheistic culture is going to relate with the lyrics and just everything that's in the music a little bit better than, of course, the Christian culture would, especially on this last album we released. That was written literally during the transition. There were some songs while I was going through some of these struggles, and some songs that are written after that happened. You know, I'm really stoked that we have gotten a positive feedback. It's not something I expected, but I'm really excited to have a bunch of new atheist fans all ready to hear the new music. I had one guy tell me that he's made it his new gym workout music, and so that just excites me that, you know, people can even relate with what I'm saying.
Where would my listeners and viewers go to find out more about the band, about who you are, about kind of what your journey's about? Give me sort of a hub. Again, this isn't going to be for everybody, but for those who do want to go deeper, where do they go?
We're the only Order of Elijah out there. You could Google our name and it'll give you all of our social sites. Of course, we're on Twitter and Facebook. We're all over YouTube. You can go find some lyric videos if you can't understand the lyrics. We're about to drop a brand new song called War at Heart, and it's off our newer album. And I'm really excited. I think that a lot of secular people are going to be able to relate with that. It has to do with my struggles and my frustrations with some of the stuff we just discussed. But other than that, we have a tour coming up, so you can go check out our tour dates. We've got some tour flyers. We're coming through Colorado and California in August, Colorado, Michigan, Texas in June. So we'll be here and there, and I'm hoping to meet some new people. I've had a lot of people tell me they're going to be coming out to the show, so I'm sure we'll have some really nice discussions while I'm out there.
Literally and metaphorically, it's a band on a journey. Shannon, thanks for spending a few minutes to sort of explain what all this has been about, and best wishes in all the things that are happening in your circle and with the band. We'll keep an eye on things from here. And in the meantime, you got a whole bunch of people who can relate to you and your story and who have your back. And sort of congratulations on sort of bravely speaking out and finding your own voice. That's a pretty amazing thing.
I sure appreciate it, Seth. Thanks for having me on, and hopefully we'll have something everyone can enjoy on the next album as well.
Sounds good. Thanks, man.
Thanks.